Rain poured over the quiet suburban street, washing away the faint echoes of the day. Daniel Reed, a single father in his late 30s, stood at the entrance of his modest auto repair shop, locking up for the night. His hands were calloused from years of hard work, his denim shirt stained with grease, and his tired eyes carried the weight of every struggle he had faced since his wife's passing. His only purpose now was his 8-year-old daughter, Emily, a bright little girl with curious eyes and a heart too big for her small body. As Daniel turned to leave, a black luxury car screeched to a halt across the road. Before he could react, the back door burst open, and a teenage girl stumbled out, drenched and trembling. She was maybe 16 or 17, dressed in a torn private school uniform, her face pale with fear. Daniel froze for a moment, then she looked straight at him, her eyes desperate, whispering through heavy breaths, "Please, help me, they're coming." Daniel rushed forward, helping her to her feet. Hey, it's okay, you're safe now," he said calmly, though his heart raced. Emily peeked from the window of their apartment above the shop, watching her father lead the terrified girl inside. He wrapped her in a towel, gave her water, and waited for her to catch her breath. "Who's after you?" he asked. The girl hesitated, glancing at the door. "My name is Clara Williams. My dad, he's the CEO of W Tech Industries. Men came to our house tonight. They beat my mom. She's dying. I ran away to get help." Her voice cracked as tears spilled down her cheeks. Daniel's mind raced. W Tech was one of the biggest companies in the city, and he'd heard rumors of corporate wars, corruption, and threats. "You came here because..." Clara looked at him with a strange sense of trust. "I saw you once. My dad's car broke down outside your shop last year. You fixed it fast, and I remember how kind you were. I didn't know where else to go." Before Daniel could respond, headlights flashed through the rain. 2 dark SUVs rolled to a stop outside. His instinct screamed danger. He grabbed his phone and whispered to Emily, "Stay upstairs and don't come out." Then he turned to Clara. "Go to the back room and lock the door." Moments later, 3 men in black suits entered the shop, their cold expressions cutting through the dim light. "We're looking for someone," one of them said. "A girl. You seen her?" Daniel met their gaze without flinching. "No, haven't seen anyone." The man smirked. "Funny. We tracked her phone to this area." He stepped closer, scanning the room. "Mind if we look around?" Daniel crossed his arms. "This is private property. You got a warrant." The thug's smile vanished. "Wrong answer." Before Daniel could react, the man swung a punch. Daniel ducked, his body moving faster than he thought possible, and countered with a quick strike to the man's ribs. The second man charged, but Daniel's knee slammed into his chest, sending him stumbling into a shelf of tools. The third drew a weapon, but Daniel grabbed a wrench and hurled it, hitting the man's hand and disarming him. Within seconds, the 3 were on the ground, groaning in pain. Daniel's breathing was steady, controlled, like a man trained for moments just like this. Clara peeked from the back room, wide-eyed. How did you do that?" Daniel didn't answer. He just locked the door behind the fallen men and picked up the phone. "I'm calling the police." But before he could, Clara grabbed his arm. "No, you can't. They're not regular thugs. My father's security team is compromised. I think someone from inside set this up." Daniel froze. "You're saying this was planned?" She nodded, tears returning. "My mom, they hit her. They said my dad was next. Something about a deal gone wrong." He hesitated for a long moment before making a decision. "Then we're not waiting around. Let's go get her." Within minutes, Daniel grabbed his jacket, a first aid kit, and his old motorcycle keys. Clara followed him, still shaking. As they rode through the dark city streets, the rain sliced across their faces. She held onto him tightly, terrified yet strangely safe. They reached a luxurious mansion on the outskirts, the Williams estate. The front gates were ajar, lights flickering inside. Daniel parked quietly and moved through the shadows, his eyes scanning every corner. Inside, the hall was a scene of chaos, broken glass, bloodstains, and silence. "Mom," Clara called out softly. A faint groan answered from the living room. They rushed in. A woman in her 40s lay on the floor, bruised and barely conscious. Daniel knelt beside her, checking her pulse. "She's alive. We need to move fast." He quickly cleaned her wounds using supplies from his kit. His movements were precise, too precise for an ordinary mechanic. Clara watched him, puzzled. "You're not just a mechanic, are you?" Daniel didn't look up. "Used to be in special rescue." Military med tech unit. Quit after my wife died. Clara's eyes widened. You saved people for a living. He nodded silently. Still do, sometimes. As he lifted Mrs. Williams carefully onto the couch, a noise came from upstairs, heavy boots. Daniel motioned for silence. He grabbed a nearby fire poker and moved to the staircase. 3 armed men descended slowly, unaware of his position. In a flash, Daniel swung the poker, striking the first man across the jaw. The second fired, the bullet grazing Daniel's arm. Clara screamed. He gritted his teeth, charged forward, and tackled the gunman, disarming him and knocking him out cold. The last man tried to flee, but Clara, trembling yet brave, hurled a vase at his head. He fell unconscious. Daniel checked his wound, shallow. He turned to Clara. You did good. They carried Mrs. Williams to Daniel's truck and sped away toward an abandoned medical facility he once worked at, now his hidden refuge. There, he set up emergency equipment and stabilized her condition. Hours passed. Finally, Mrs. Williams opened her eyes, whispering weakly, Clara, Daniel. She recognized him. You worked for my husband once, she said faintly. He told me you saved his driver during that car accident last year. I should have thanked you then. Daniel smiled faintly. Save your strength. You're safe now. But before relief could sink in, Clara's phone buzzed. A message. We know where you are. Bring the girl. Daniel's eyes darkened. They're not stopping. He turned to Mrs. Williams. Who's behind this? She swallowed hard. My husband's partner, Victor Kane. He wants control of the company. When your name came up last year, he found out about your background. Said you were too dangerous to have around if things went wrong. Daniel clenched his fists. So this was personal. Moments later, headlights flashed outside again. Dozens of men surrounded the building. Clara held her mother tightly as Daniel prepared for the inevitable. He loaded the only gun he had, an old service pistol. Stay low, he told them. The doors burst open. The attackers poured in, shouting orders. Daniel moved like a ghost in the dark, silent, efficient, and lethal without killing. He used the shadows, his training, and his courage to disarm and disable one man after another. Clara watched in awe as the man who'd once fixed her father's car now fought like a soldier born for war. When the dust settled, the sound of police sirens filled the night. Daniel had called them just moments before the final wave, using a signal code known only to ex-military responders. The corrupt men were arrested, and Victor Kane's plan unraveled within hours. At dawn, Daniel sat outside the hospital where Mrs. Williams was recovering. His arm was bandaged, his face bruised, but his eyes, calm as ever. Clara came out to meet him, smiling weakly. The police said you saved at least 6 people last night. My mom's going to be okay. He nodded, tired but relieved. That's all that matters. She hesitated, then said softly, you know, my dad wants to thank you in person. He said he owes you more than his life. Daniel shook his head. No one owes me anything. Just keep your family safe. Clara smiled, tears in her eyes. You already did that. She hugged him tightly before leaving. Weeks later, as life began to return to normal, Daniel returned to his shop. Emily ran into his arms, overjoyed to have her dad back safe. A brand new car pulled up outside, sleek and silver, with the W-Tech logo. Clara stepped out with her father, Mr. Williams. They handed Daniel a sealed envelope. Inside was a contract, partnership rights to a new automotive innovation